Namaste. I am so glad to be with you again for another episode of Live, Love, Engage. And I really want to welcome all of you here, those of you who are listening on your favorite podcast platform, and those of you watching on YouTube. I am looking forward to our conversation today with Gavin Frye, who has 40 years of experience as a licensed spiritual therapist and leadership mentor to entrepreneurs. And he also has a new book called The Real You, Leading Your Life from Your Authentic Self. And this book is a comprehensive work that illuminates and makes accessible the universal path of the authentic self. And I know we were going to talk about something, but I think I'm definitely going to want to actually ask you a little bit about that, especially the universal path of that. And that's raising my curiosity. So first off, I want to officially welcome you, Gavin, to Live, Love, Engage.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Gloria.
Oh, thank you. And I always, well, not always, but I would say 90%, 90 to 95% of the time, I love to start off these interviews with asking our guests a little bit about their journey. And so you've been doing this type of work for quite a while. And I was curious about what prompted you to, get down this path of being a spiritual therapist and leadership mentor?
Well, it's quite a story. All of us have our own challenges and things that we have to reckon with in life, and mine has been a ride. So my career got catapulted into this profession of psychology when I was in my teens because I grew up with a sister who was a heroin addict for 17 years. And then my brother took it even further. He was 5 years older than me, and he took on the law, and he started doing burglary and then kidnapping, and then he became a white supremacist gang leader, and he killed a lot of Black people.
Oh my goodness.
And
Wow.
I'm riding the horses behind them, and it's just decimating to my family, my mom and dad, and to me. I mean, I just held on, honestly, Gloria, for dear life for 6 or 7 years. But it catapulted me towards psychology because I needed to actually find a place where I could come into healing and I could come into understanding. And then after psychology, then the whole arena of spirituality and its central importance in like human evolution and my healing showed up. So by the time I was 25, I started I started to let go of the trauma that I'd carried and learned how to do that. And I also started to open up to my spirit inside and the way spiritual energy moved through me with compassion and love and wisdom. And so that's why, even though I'm 67, I just turned 67. It's been 40 years, but by my mid-20s, I had found my love, my passion, which was to really work with people. I was drawn towards intimacy and how can relationships flourish. I was stunned by the divorce rate. And I just watched my own parents and I watched people have challenges. It's like, why is a committed relationship so darn painful and difficult and often breaks? And I started to discover a lot of keys about that, which we can talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, well, happy birthday, number one.
Thank you.
But also, um, sorry to hear about the challenges with siblings, and I know. So, are you the baby of the family then? Is
I'm the
that
baby and I'm the baby in the family, and I had to do all kinds of things in response to all of that. Of course, I wanted to be the good kid, and I didn't want to cause my parents anymore. All the fallout in the wake of that was
Mhm.
part of my reckoning.
Yeah, yeah, I resonate with that, and because that's pretty much my story as well. Not exactly the same type of things, but yeah, it was I have older brother and older sister, and they both were had in a lot of trouble with mom in particular, and so I avoided that. Now, what's the did your siblings? Did your sister recover? And if it's okay for me to ask,
Oh yeah, no,
what
you can
happened?
ask anything. My
Yeah.
sister actually came out. She came through it, which is not
Mhm.
easy because she was a long-term and an early addict. but
Mm.
she used Narcotics Anonymous, and then she turned towards Christianity.
Mm.
So she's in a church in Oregon and doing well. Now, my brother, interestingly enough, after 15 years and being locked in solitary confinement, he was talking to a prison ministry volunteer, and he had a full-blown religious conversion to Christ.
Oh, wow.
That was
Mm.
real. I mean, he was as if all that other stuff, all those layers just dropped away. He became a model inmate. They let him out of prison.
Mm.
And then he went to work in this church, same church as my sister in Oregon. And he worked with the youth. And you can imagine he still had all his tattoos, but
Mhm.
he spoke. He was a powerful influence on their lives.
Yeah, I can imagine.
He married. He was going to have kids. He was taking a nursing program, but he died suddenly in an automobile accident when he
Oh.
was like 40. But
Oh.
the arc of his life was quite
Mhm.
dramatic.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
he did find the promised land.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, yeah. We want to talk with you more about this afterwards. Definitely some parallels in our lives here, but that's for another day. So I
Okay.
want to get back to well, I want to talk first a little bit about the book, and then we can talk a little bit more about maybe the intimate relationships, because as I
Sure.
mentioned when I was introducing you, that I was curious about this, how you refer to it as the universal path of the authentic self. So what what do you mean by that? And maybe even why did you wind up writing the book as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Well, what I mean by universal is that within each of us as humans, in my experience, underneath it all, our deepest nature is what I'm talking about, is the terrain of the authentic self. And I could call it soul. I could call it divine. Lincoln called it the better angels of our nature. But that's like, aside from whatever language, there's love there, there's wisdom, there's compassion.
Mm.
So the universal path is really akin to Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey.
Yeah, okay.
So what's amazing is when we're born, if you see a 6-month-old child, they are totally authentic. They can't not be authentic. So
Right.
that's the first stage. It's like this immersion. And so, but most of us encounter difficulties and trauma, and then we adapt. And we often adapt things that are to survive and protect ourselves. I call that the false self or the adapted self.
Mm.
And then we mistake that for who we are, and we lose touch with that deeper connection. So that's the second stage. The third stage is when you touch back into who you are and you go, oh my God, like I did at 25.
Right.
And the rest of my life has been about getting more anchored there. The desire often is to serve from there,
Mm.
give to others. And so that's what's fueled my growth and my work. But I'm always stunned by, I'll have a client come in and he says, I just want to tell you, I've never had a spiritual experience. And I say, really? So I said, well, tell me about some of the richer experiences you've had. So they'll say, well, I was okay. I was in nature once, and there was this time where just I came out of the forest, and something happened, and this energy descended on me, and it was like, what, I was bigger than my body. And I said, that's a spiritual experience in what I'm referring to, or when their child was born.
Right.
So, but that territory I found, and the book is entirely about how to cultivate and get rooted into that territory. And it
Mm.
takes bravery, because you have to actually encounter everything in there, including the things you really would prefer were not there and you don't want to deal with them. So there's a healing and an awakening process.
Mm. So if someone's listening to this and they're wondering about it, what would you say would be the true benefits of being able to do that? Because as you say, it's really kind of looking at the totality of things.
Well, the level of fulfillment and meaning that's available in life when someone is in touch with the uniqueness of who they are, because we are truly unique. You listen to Willie Nelson, or you listen to Yo-Yo Ma or Gloria Rand with your voice. No one has ever been or will ever be again like us. It doesn't mean we're special more than everybody else. We're all special.
Right.
But to cultivate that is where there's a profound level of meaning and a direction in life that's natural, that's ours. And the beautiful thing about cultivating that territory is once you start to get a hold of it, it's self-reinforcing because you go, I like this. I feel like I'm being myself. Maybe you with some of your work and your podcast or it's like, this is me. This
Right.
is what I'm to do. And like with entrepreneurs, many entrepreneurs come my way who are very wealthy. They've made lots of money and they're not happy because they don't know themselves psychologically. They don't know themselves spiritually. They don't know their gifts. Once they start doing that, they often just completely begin revising and transforming how they see their business, the purpose of their business, and how they want to run it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're working with a client, what is like the first thing that they can do? Or even if someone's like, again, listening to this and maybe they're kind of going through the same type of thing, what's like maybe the first thing that they can look at doing or I don't know if I'm making myself clear there, but yeah.
Well, part of the nature of the territory that I'm speaking about, Gloria, is this is an interior life.
Mm,
If we start to live from deep inside out, but we're not trained how to do this. We're trained in this world, in this educational system and society to please others, we often choose our careers based on what will make money or what will please our parents. So
mm,
it's the old adage, to thine self be true, to know thyself. So that's a relationship that if you begin cultivating it, often journaling can help that process. My book is designed for someone to actually begin to court their own experience of their uniqueness
mm,
and also give them tools, because let's say when you're in there, you discover trauma from when you were 8 and maybe you had an alcoholic father and you survived it, but all of the trauma is still sitting in there, yet to be experienced, yet to be healed. If you don't know what to do when you encounter that, and there's tools for that in therapy, out of therapy, these are traversable territories. We're designed to evolve and blossom. That's our birthright. But it does take learning and orientation and having skills to do it.
yeah, that's for sure. And I can attest to that because that has been my journey is learning how to be able to release that. And in fact, I did have an alcoholic father, so I did have all that lovely trauma as a kid. So I can, relate to that. And but I'm so blessed that all the different things that I have been doing over the years, in fact, even still lately, has really helped that. And I encourage everyone out there listening to seek help in whatever way that can be, whether it's picking up Gavin's book and looking through that, or it's finding some other type of counselor or something out there. But to know that you don't have to go it alone, and that there is there is life after trauma, and it can be a really beautiful, beautiful life. So let's get back a little bit to what you were talking about at the beginning when you were mentioning about, that your parents were having these issues and, and mine did too. And that, so distressed at the rate of divorce in this country. And I know that it's not easy to be in a relationship. So, and I think part of it is being able to talk with your partner, because I know from my experience is that I tended to sort of take after my dad in how I dealt with things, which was to be quiet. And I didn't like to rock the boat because again, I saw a lot of, fighting and things going on either with my parents or with my siblings. And it's like, okay, I wanted to, as you said, be the good boy. I wanted to be the good girl and just not rock the boat. But that doesn't always work very well. So
No,
yeah. So can you
no,
talk a little bit about, sort of the challenges with that and what we can do to um, be able to communicate better?
yeah. Well, one, I'm just astonished. as central as this is to our own fulfillment in a given life, that we are taught nothing about how to do this in school. It is completely missing. And so what I realized is that people had a fundamental misunderstanding about relationship and the purpose of relationship. Most people approach relationships thinking, I want to find somebody who I get along with all the time. And if we don't get along or there's challenges, that means something's wrong or this might not be my person.
Mm.
And what I want to say is an intimate relationship has two purposes. One, there is a joyful companionship of being in life together and creating and supporting each other and having dreams. And the second fundamental purpose is the relationship will grow each partner up.
Mm.
It will provide challenges in the relationship to reflect back to each partner where they've yet to heal, where they've yet to grow. So what that means is, rather than avoiding difficult conversations, what happens is we get triggered by a circumstance and one or both partners get triggered. And that's like, oh my God, something's wrong. This is cataclysmic. And I go, no, this is actually the relationship working. A successful relationship means partners trigger each other, but they both have an understanding that that's what this is. And when it happens, if they need to, if they're heated, they take a timeout, but they come back, and each partner has a safe space to be able to vulnerably, honestly talk about what goes on for them. One listens, the other speaks. Then you know that you get to speak while the other listens. And there's going to be two different experiences of any type of challenge. And you can talk about when you showed up late for dinner, one partner said, I got triggered. I started to feel like maybe you didn't care about me. I felt abandoned. I'm not saying you did that. That's what I felt. It was hard. And I just wanted to tell you that instead of not saying anything. Then your partner, because they're not getting blamed, they're not being made wrong, can go, wow, I see what you're saying. And I'm sorry that I was late. And I want to be a little more thoughtful about that. So then they grow. But it's in the courageous conversations that we reveal ourselves to ourselves and our partner. And, you know, I have a chapter in my book. It's called Intimate Relationship, the Ultimate Mirror. Often our partner can see our unresolved issues clearer than we can. But they're delicate. We have to be tender with each other. We have to provide safety. And there's tools that are available and principles. So you go, oh, so when I get hurt by my partner, this is part of how I can grow into more of a wholeness and a healed person. And I can use my partner as someone who can do that with me, and they can do the same. Yes, that's right. It can be like a spiritual practice.
That is such a wonderful way of looking at things. And because for so many things, because I can definitely relate to the triggering things because I know, and this has really been later as I've matured and as I've done some work on myself to really understand that. Because at first it was, I didn't really understand why I was getting triggered. And it sounds to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that perhaps it doesn't even really matter why we're getting triggered. It's just the fact that to recognize that, ooh, why am I'm getting really upset about this. And then to be able to just voice our emotions about it and not, as you say, not to blame someone.
Right. But sometimes when you have a flare with your partner and you find yourself feeling wounded or hurt, and it might even be a similar situation that happened with them before, there'll be patterns here,
Mm.
is you can go into another room. You could just say, excuse me, I have some work to do with some place inside that's very upset. So you go in the other room and you actually do a dialogue, or you write out a dialogue and you reach out to the place inside that's so hurt. And you say, wow, I see that really was hard for you. I'm over here. I want to be with you. I need to learn about what's happening. What was that like for you? You can feel all you want. You can tell me, and I'll listen, and I'll hold with you while we learn together what just happened back there with our partner. And usually the places inside that are hurt, they never get addressed. It's all focused on the relationship. This is a self-discovery of a wound inside that, if tended to with care and curiosity, it will actually often even know how to heal itself. It will say, it's just so great that you're asking me how I'm doing. And yes, it's hard. And your empathy is helpful to me. No one's ever really sat down and talked to me when things are hard. So then we develop a healing relationship with ourselves. It's almost like a loving parent with the parts inside that are healing, that are coming along, and embrace them.
That is so powerful. I can see this, and just in looking back through my experiences that I've had in my marriage, how this would have been so helpful because
Oh,
it used to be very frustrating for me. And sometimes it was just even sometimes how he would react
right.
to something that would trigger me. Anyway, it was, I love this idea of being able to just say, I need to go do some work first, because that way it prevents you from really escalating it and saying things that you
Right.
may regret
That-
later.
that's exactly right. 80% of the most difficult parts of being in relationship, mouthing off, saying things you don't like, getting angry, being destructive, get eliminated by orienting it this way. But if I may use an example that you shared from your life, can I do that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, like you said, my dad was an alcoholic. I learned to just stuff it down, not say anything. So I would imagine in a marriage, you're over here, and part of, I frame it as your soul's curriculum, your deeper learning is, I have needs. I can request things. I can speak up, even if I'm afraid someone's going to hurt me or someone won't listen to me. And more, that place that you go in and check inside says, we need to go back there and we need to tell him about what we need and why this was so hard. And if you would be willing to go and have the courage to talk to him, that would help me, and we can grow here so we don't just keep repeating this pattern. And if you make the same space for your partner to be able to do that work and then come back your way, I mean, so much transformational recognition of where I can progress and grow, and past
Mhm.
patterns get revealed when we care about someone very much. The hardest times are when you both get triggered at the same time.
Yeah,
It's a really
absolutely.
good idea to take an extended time out. The hormones take an hour or so to release, but you always want to come back. But one person starts, the other one listens, and I provide that whole orientation in that
Mm,
chapter in my book. Yeah.
yeah. And this is something that it's interesting that a lot of, well, depending on like what religion, let's say that you grow up in, and let's say you decide to get married in that church. So for instance, I grew up Catholic, and so did my
Okay.
husband. And so
Okay.
we had to go through premarital counseling, but I don't think there was anything in there really about how to resolve issues like this, and certainly not in the way that you're describing. And if it had been, wow, that would have been so useful to know,
Yes.
because especially so often when if when you're getting married in your 20s and 30s, and you're still navigating how to be a grown up, and then you get into this relationship and you're all, starry-eyed, oh, fall in love with the person. But
Right.
handling conflict is natural, because that's what's going to come up, and you have to know how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. The key is to be able to use conflicts and difficulties to strengthen their relationship and become more intimate versus the other way around.
Right. Yeah. And that was the other thing too that struck me when you first started talking about this too, is the fact that it's it's I guess not, well, not necessarily okay, but it's the fact that it's conflict can be useful for your own, personal growth, and then the growth of the relationship together as well.
Absolutely. Without it, we wouldn't grow as much, or couldn't grow as much as a couple.
Yeah.
So It's how do you navigate it and recognize that this isn't evidence that something's off course. This is actually evidence of a loving relationship. When we love someone so much, it's actually often easy to feel so hurt by them.
That's true, and that just brought up another point, because if you didn't get hurt, it probably is because you just don't care as much.
Right.
The fact
That's
that it does hurt so much is because of the love that you feel.
Yeah, and the hurt it can be so insidious that your partner can raise an eyebrow. It could be a certain tone in their voice. It could be the fact that you asked them to put the dishes away and they didn't do it. And then you walk in the kitchen and then there comes the trigger right there. But you have to know that when your peace gets disturbed inside, and we're not involved in blame, we're just saying somebody in here is disturbed. You then have access way to be in relationship with the hurt more so than maybe you ever had in your life.
Yeah,
And you can
absolutely.
become very skillful at doing that.
Mm. I ask you something, especially in dealing with, this subject maybe in particular. What is a commonly held belief, let's say about maybe marriage and divorce and relationships in general, that you passionately disagree with?
That if you have a rich, wonderful relationship, that its destiny should be to last forever until the end of your life.
Mm.
I held this belief. I was married for 25 years with a wonderful woman and thought we would go all the way to the end. But that wasn't in the cards, despite all of our efforts and mine. So I had to reckon with the shock of the disillusionment that belief really wasn't true for me, because I
Mm.
finally realized that I needed to move on from the marriage. Never thought I'd be divorced. Never thought that would happen. I had to go through humiliation, sense of failure, all of that. That's why I'm highlighting it with you now is um, just because we don't stay together forever doesn't mean something's wrong. We completed what we had to complete. Wasn't our intention, but could we do that honorably? I can't tell you, Gloria, how many people come my way who they know in their hearts they're not to be with their partner anymore, but they don't want to go to war with them. They don't want to make them wrong, and they want to part honorably.
Mm.
And they even have differences and they want to handle those honorably. I did with my wife, and I've helped so many couples. So I tell couples when they first come to see me, if you think my job is to keep you together, you may not want to work with me, because what I want to do is support each of you getting deeply in touch with your truth about where you are relative to your partner. And if you both want to be together, something remarkable can be built here. But if one or both of you don't, it's probably best to pause and check into that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good lesson, and I know I think we had actually, well, we did some marriage counseling together, but I also did some counseling on my own beforehand, and and you're right. It's that, even though it's lovely to want to be together with someone for a long time, sometimes it isn't in the cards, as you say. It's maybe you come together for what is it, for a reason and a season, and it's okay to part ways, especially if you did get something out of the relationship, if you can say that, and I can say
Yeah.
that, as when you were talking about the mirror part earlier, that I absolutely know why I chose my husband and what lessons I needed to learn from him, because he absolutely did uh, hold a mirror up to me, and part of it was learning how to be able to speak up and to be able to get my needs met.
Yeah.
And so, I appreciate you also, though, pointing out that it doesn't have to be necessarily. It's okay if you find yourselves in the place that, even if you've done the work and everything, that sometimes it's just not meant to be
Yeah.
a long term thing.
Well, it's common. The romantic ideal is that we'll be together forever. Some religions really talk about the rigidity that it should be forever and you can't get a divorce. So there's
Yeah.
that. But what I will say though is typically what will happen why a couple isn't together for the long term is one of them will really be into growth and being on a healing and awakening pattern, and the other partner will not. And once they realize that, the partner that's on that healing and awakening path, they can't change the trajectory of that. That's who they are. It's what their life is about. And so if the partner is not willing to go, the partner's not willing to go. But if you have two people who are on a healing and awakening path, and they've got a lot of compatibility, which is central, then you've got an opportunity to build something that can be sustaining. Because the beautiful thing about using a relationship as a transformation or a spiritual practice is with both people growing, you touch into new parts of yourselves, each of you, and you bring that richness back into the relationship. You feed the relationship. It's like the way streams feed a lake. So if you work with a little child inside that's learning how to speak up, and then you start speaking up, and then he goes, "Oh, this is fantastic when you speak up. Now I know how I can love you. This is helpful." So then it gets stronger. Yeah. So there's gold in them there hills.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are you curious about right now?
Well, I'm very curious as to why in the last 3 years, my entire direction has been involved in shifting from one-on-one counseling work, which I've done for 40 years, into writing a book, being on media, doing online work. And it's meaningful for me. But what I'm curious about is I don't seem to be hugely identified with it and driven with my will to do it. I'm doing it, but it's not what I thought it would be. Like I would be marshaling ahead. I actually have, because I've been on a spiritual path for 40 years, what has more meaning for me is fulfillment that is not tied into accomplishment or my identity in the world. So I live on a lake, Lake Stevens in Washington State, and I'm just so enjoying nature. And so a big part of my work is teaching people how to get more rooted in their being and just enjoy their own company and enjoy what they enjoy. And I continue to find layers where I've got this Protestant ethic where it's like I'm pushing myself. Well, what have you done for me lately? And I watch it, and then I go, I just breathe. I go, we're not doing that anymore. We're not. So the velocity of my expansion in this new area, it's not what I think it could be, but I really want the quality of the experience of living and creating to include tasting the sweetness of whatever each day holds. You've heard that, remember that thing by Stephen Covey. He said, you go up the ladder and you go all the way up the ladder and you achieve it and you get up to the top and you go, oh, it's against the wrong wall. So I'm very grateful. But I'm still curious how to go about moving forward in a skillful, impactful way with getting my teachings out and who I am while not pushing myself. I'm curious about that edge.
Well, that's a good thing to be curious about, and I think that's something that you can continue to probably ask yourself that every day as you get, as you do what you're doing each day, and see, because it's also a really good way to be able to, grow in a way that's sustainable, but that also allows you to be able to enjoy life at the same time.
One of my discoveries along that lines that's been central is I've had the tendency to do everything myself. Very stressful. Even the things I don't like to do, the tech things. And the more I can identify what I really like to do and where I need support, skillful support, and then I turn and get that, oh my God. And so, but it took me to recognize that. It's like, I'm now seeing that. So I've got a team that's growing around me. And I am astonished that someone likes to do graphic design or someone likes to do social media. Not me.
Oh yeah, I hear you. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
It is wonderful to be able to do that. And it is so important because not only does it ease your stress level, but it also helps you to grow more efficiently that way because you're putting your energy into the things that you love to do and letting
That's right.
someone else do that other
Right.
stuff. So good for you. Kudos
Yeah.
for doing that.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot here today. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
Gosh, I don't have anything that comes up, Gloria. You've been thorough. I've appreciated you'd shared some of your life and some of your, your curiosities, and also you've just taken in, the rich paradigm that this is. That's a very different paradigm for relationship, for even diagnosing
Yeah.
relationship and
Right.
intervening and building and cultivating. So I've appreciated the way you've received with your heart what I've had to share.
Mm. Well, it was a good message and good to know for continuing to reinforce what I've some of what I've come to learn, and it's also good, just good knowledge to have. And I know that it's helped everyone listening out there today and watching. So if someone is listening and would like to know more about the work that you're doing, they also want to be able to get a hold of this book because it sounds extremely useful to anyone in whatever type of relationship they're in. Where's the best place? How do people get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, my website is very simple, gavinfrye.com, GAVINFRYE.com. And you can also go on Amazon to Gavin Frye, The Real You, and you'll see my book there. Um, and one part of the book that we haven't even talked about, but as we evolve into our authentic self, we start moving into what I might call our gifts and
Mm.
service and vision and leadership. And I talk a lot about how to get a hold of all that and move on all of that, because that's a natural process. So there's kind of like an evolution as you start getting more rooted in who you are, that there starts to be an overflow and a desire to serve other people. So the book really addresses that as well.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, and I agree. I've definitely seen that in my own life, and that I definitely want to be more of service, and I look for different opportunities that I can do that in my life, and I know others are doing that as well. The enlightened folk that I hang around with who who are who are yeah, tapping into their authentic selves and are really and sharing it with others, which is so important.
Yeah.
Well, I absolutely appreciate having you on the show today. This was wonderful conversation, and I'm so thankful to have gotten to know you and to be able to share you with the world today.
Well, thank you for your curiosity. I feel that. I feel you're a student of life and a student of your consciousness, and that's clear. And if you ever want to have me back and talk about leadership or parenting or whatever, it'd be a pleasure to be back. And
Yeah,
it's a pleasure to know you better, Gloria.
absolutely. I would love to do that. We will see if we can't do that soon. So until next time, I also want to thank all of you for listening and watching. And I hope if you did receive some value out of this today that you'll let me know, frankly. Not normally I will say, leave me a review, but I will say reach out to me and let me know. You can contact me through my website, which is gloriarand.com, GLORIARAND.com, and or comment on the YouTube videos, because I would love to know what you thought about today's interview. And if you have any other questions or anything else that you would like us to be able to cover on the show, I'm open to that as well. So until next time, I always encourage you to go out today and every day and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.